I was returning from dinner at my daughter's house when I received a message from an unknown number. "Don't forget to look around." I was surprised and replied, "Is this a threat? It's salvation. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. If I come up short today, I'll lose my granddaughter to the cold and to a man who mistakes cruelty for discipline." The first knock is all knuckle and anger. 3 blows that shiver the glass in the sidelights. I'm holding a coffee mug when it happens. The china rings against the saucer like a bell at closing time. The house is quiet in the way old houses are in Phoenix. Adobe settling. The low hum of air conditioning that shouldn't need to work this late in spring. I set the cup down and take my time walking to the door. Women my age learn to pace ourselves. You rush and you miss things. "Open up." The voice is my daughter's, pitched too high to be sober. "And I know you're in there." I adjust my reading glasses, glance at the deadbolt, then unfasten it because some lessons have to be faced straight. The door swings wide, and Rebecca pushes past me with a gust of outside air. She smells like sweat and burnt coffee. 38 going on 15. Her eyes jump room to room like they're looking for exits. "Mom, I need $150,000 tonight." There's always a number. It changes outfits. Hospital bill. Business buy-in. This time something about steaks. But it's the same old hunger underneath. I shut the door slow and quiet like the hinge is a metronome. "Life or death?" she says. And it's theatrical enough to make me glance at the grandfather clock as if it might throw up its hands and call cut. "What's the woman's name?" I ask. "What woman?" "The one you're really paying. The one who calls pain discipline and runs girls into the ground out by the state line. The one you told me could fix your daughter by winter." I keep my voice level. "Say the name." Rebecca's jaw tightens. She paces. "You don't understand the pressure. You never did." I let her talk. She lays out the usual fog. Errands, smart plays that went dumb, people who don't joke about late payments. When she notices I'm still there, unmoved, she swipes a silver frame off the mantel. It hits the hardwood like a pistol misfiring. Glass splinters across our younger faces. Robert forever laughing at a pier that doesn't exist anymore. Rebecca riding my shoulders, me squinting into clean summer light. A thin line of red appears on my fingertip when I kneel to gather the shards. I watch the blood bead and fall onto Robert's smile, and I'm surprised by how steady my hands stay. "No," I say, and the word lands with the weight of years I can't get back. "I won't, not again. You'll regret this, old woman." Her voice goes low and mean. I stand and my knees remind me they're older than I admit. I already regret plenty. She storms out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the chain on the deadbolt I didn't use. The house sighs after her. I carry the broken photo to my desk and lay the pieces on a blotter the color of winter fields. The lamp warms the glass to a dull glow. That's when my phone buzzes. A number I don't know. "Don't forget to look around." I stare at the message and tap a response with the pads of fingers that have grown blunt with age. Is this a threat? The reply arrives fast, like the other person is watching me type. "This is rescue. Rescue." It's a word that tastes like the past. I pocket the phone and run a finger along the frame's bent edge. Robert used to say I was too soft with the girl. Boundaries are love dressed properly. Maggie. He'd tell me while folding newspapers in half the time it takes me to find my glasses. He's been gone 3 winters now, and somehow his voice still threads the rooms more reliably than the ducks. I pull a folder from the drawer. Thin cardboard thick with receipts. The ledger of second chances. Car notes paid. Court fines settled. Cash floats that never return to shore. I add the numbers because adding is how I think. When I'm angry enough to buy someone else a life. Then I close the folder, lock it, and set the key next to the broken photograph. Like I'm staging a lesson for a stubborn student. This is what the future looks like if you let it. I should sleep. Women my age are supposed to honor schedules. That's how we keep joints greased and hearts agreeable. But my head hums, a dark beehive, and the house feels overfull of other people's breath. I take a jacket from the hall tree, the quiet good navy one, and step out into the night. It's a clean 55 degrees, the kind of cool that makes the desert talk low. Streetlights paint the sidewalk in puddles of yellow. one every 30 steps, a rhythm my body falls into without asking. I'm not headed anywhere in particular, just away from the smell of my daughter's panic. I pass the little diner where the third shift nurses take their coffee black and their kindnesses quick. A bus hisses by, empty except for a woman who holds a paper bag like a confession. 17 minutes into the walk, my phone buzzes again. Same number, same chill that isn't the air. Look around you. I stop beneath a brighter light, touch my glasses up the bridge of my nose, and turn casually like a woman deciding which deli has better pastries. That's when I see it. A low, dark sedan easing along a block behind. Too slow for traffic. Too smooth for curiosity. When I cross at the light, it crosses. When I turn down a street with one sleepy porch light and a pair of trash cans like sentries, the car follows. Unblinking, the body does its own math. Knees that complain at stairs take the idea of running under advisement and sign on anyway. Shoes that are meant for errands rediscover what pavement feels like. "Stop, old woman," a voice calls, and it has the weary authority of someone who's succeeded at worse. We just want to talk. I have never been good at pretending not to hear. I pick up to what grandkids would call a jog, and doctors would call a terrible idea. A second door thunks shut. Footsteps. More than one pair. I cut between two buildings into an alley that smells like motor oil and old paint. Garbage cans to the left. A stack of pallets to the right. Cover enough for a woman who used to hide from cousins during July barbecues. The sedan idles at the mouth of the alley, headlights washing brick. I duck behind a shed. Someone's forgotten storage. And try the handle. It gives. I slide inside and pull the door, leaving just enough crack to breathe air that tastes like dust, and saw blades. Flashlight beams lay slow stripes across the alley. One voice, older professional, murmurs, "Where'd she go?" Another, eager, overloud, answers, "Can't be far." My phone thrums in my pocket, and I could kiss whatever engineer decided to offer a silent mode. I palm it out and read the new text. If you can stay hidden, they're paid to scare you smart. They'll quit if they think you slipped them. I want to type, "Who are you?" But I don't risk the glow. The shed door squeaks a whisper as a hand tests it. The beam slides over the seam and moves on. Dust hangs in the air like a million tiny votes against my sinuses. I won't sneeze. I tell muscles that haven't been bossed in a while. And we come to an agreement. Split it. The older voice says she's not worth the exercise. They walk. The car coughs back to life. Gravel talks under tires. I wait 2 minutes 5. I count breaths and try not to count heartbeats. Because the thing about counting heartbeats at my age is you start wondering which number will be the last. When I finally slip out, the alley feels wider. I'm halfway to the diner's neon when a side door opens somewhere behind me, and the younger voice calls close enough to lift the hairs on my neck. "Boss said he wants her scared. Not gone. Don't come back until we earn our second half." The reply floats up easy. Rebecca won't pay for nothing. For a second time staggers. Not because my daughter's name is spoken. If I'm honest, I suspected it when the sedan first matched my steps. But because of how casually it's used, as if rent and groceries and terror all sit on the same invoice. I don't run exactly. I move with purpose. Like my high school home economics teacher used to say when girls started moving too fast around the stove. The diner is fluorescent bright, a lighthouse for people who live their lives at odd hours. I head to the payphone by the window because old habits are harder to trace than new ones, and dial 3 numbers that always answer. It's 911. "What's your emergency?" "My name is Margaret Hayes," I say. My voice sounds like gravel leveled by a steady hand. I'm safe for the moment at the diner on Desert Ridge in Scottsdale. 2 men just chased me several blocks. I believe my daughter hired them. The operator has the soothing tone of a kindergarten teacher with a radio. "Are you injured, ma'am?" "No, I'm 70, and there's tightness in my chest I don't love. But I'm upright." "Stay where you are. Patrol is on the way." I hang up and the kid behind the counter slides me water without asking. "You all right, ma'am?" "I will be," I say, which is either optimism or a lie. And at this hour, I'm generous enough to call it both. My hands shake a little. The skin over my knuckles looks like paper that's been folded and unfolded too many times. I sip and the cold walks down my throat like it's mapping a route. The squad pulls in with the toneless urgency of people who do this for a living. Out steps a detective I know just enough to trust. A steady woman with patience that outlasts other people's nerves. Mrs. Hayes. She gives the room a slow read the way good cops do, noting exits, faces, what people do with their hands. You call this in? I did. She gets me into the booth that hides in the back like a confessional and opens a small notebook. I give her the lot. My daughter at my door, the broken frame, the texts, the sedan, the alley. I don't mention the granddaughter's cold winter waiting beyond all this. That part lives in my bones, not in official statements. She asks clean questions, times, shapes, distances, and makes quick notes that look like they know where they're going. You heard a name? She asks finally. Rebecca, I say. It's easier than I thought it would be, as in the woman who shares my last name. She nods like I just set a nail she can hit without splitting the board. We'll run the nearby cameras. See what we catch. That text. Do you still have it? I hand over the phone. She photographs the screen, then passes the device back like it's fragile or sacred. Whoever sent this kept you alive tonight, she says. You should thank them when you can. I intend to. I rub the heel of my hand against my sternum. The tightness has faded to a complaint. Detective, I won't pay her. Not one more time. And if she tries trading my granddaughter to that institution to cover a debt, I'll move heaven, earth, and every retired attorney I've ever played bridge with. Understood. Her eyes go soft in a way that doesn't leak into her voice. Let's get you home with a cruiser on your bumper and a unit to swing by every hour till sunup. Tomorrow we'll talk about statements and next steps. Tomorrow, I echo, because a woman my age learns to respect the hours left in a day. We step out into night that's thinking about rain. The red and blue lights paint the diner's window in colors meant to calm or warn, depending on how you were raised. When I lock my door behind me, the house smells like coffee gone to sleep and lemon oil. The broken frame still sits on the desk where I left it, as if nothing on earth has changed. I pick up the largest shard and turn it so it catches the lamp. Robert is still laughing in that summer that only exists in my head. I tuck the glass into the trash, careful as you put a baby in a crib. Then I sit, and the leather chair takes me in like an old friend who doesn't need explanations. I open a small notebook, the paper kind, not the clever little screens, and write in a hand that has signed 1,000 contracts. No more bailouts. Call the attorney at 9 a.m. Ask Sullivan about safe harbor options for the girl. Document everything. My phone buzzes on the desk. A bee that lost its hive. Same number. I answer with a text. Fingers slow but sure. Thank you. Who are you? The reply comes in 3 beats like someone remembering how to breathe. Someone who can't watch this happen. Please be careful. They talked about your heart. I stare at the words until they settle into their true shape. Not drama, not even warning, just a fact. I close my eyes. I feel 70 in my bones and 20 in my temper. When I open them again, the room has not changed. That's the trick rooms play. They wait you out. People either keep their promises or they don't. Upstairs, I lay out my dress for the morning. Not the expensive one, the one that says, you know how to work for what you have. When I turn off the lamp, the window holds a thin reflection of my face. Older than I feel some mornings. Younger than I have any right to be on nights like this. If I fail today, the cold takes what the years have not. First the girl's fingers, then her trust, under the tutelage of a woman who tops her cruelty with the sugar of the word discipline. I have failed in other ways. This one I can meet head on. Downstairs, the clock ticks the same speed it has always favored. I count a dozen beats and let sleep find me where I am. In a house that remembers laughter, holding the quiet like a rope in both hands. I kept my word and slept what I could. Morning arrived with the sound of the paper landing in the hedges and the small, ordinary ache of ankles that have earned the right to complain. I shaved my legs slow, brewed coffee that tasted like resolve, and called my attorney at 9 on the dot. She speaks in paragraphs and invoices, which is what you want from a woman who keeps wolves out of your living room. We set an appointment for Tuesday. Then I drove to the precinct to give Detective Sullivan a proper statement and let a camera take a cautious picture of a face that can no longer pass for middle-aged. By noon, the world pretended it was normal. Sun on the porch rail. A sparrow auditioning for the role of trumpet. When the text from my daughter arrived, it wore its Sunday clothes. "Can we meet for dinner? I was out of line last night. I want to apologize," Daniel insists. "There are sentences you read twice so you can weigh every ounce. I was out of line was theater seating. Daniel insists was the stagehand tipping his cap from the wings. I agreed to 7 at a restaurant that sells pasta as if it invented noodles. Sullivan asked me to keep the dinner, sit where the camera could see, and let the tape do its patient work. And Mrs. Hayes," she added, "don't pay her. Not a dime." "Detective," I said, "no one's more tired of my dimes than I am." The place had red booths that tried to pass for romantic and a chandelier that looked like it had married into money. I took a corner with a view of the door and the street. The hostess seated me with the kind of smile people reserve for grandmothers and judges. I ordered water and the kind of salad you eat to be polite to your own arteries. Rebecca arrived on time, which worried me more than if she'd been late. Punctuality is honesty's costume. She wore a blue blouse she saves for court dates, and a smile she saves for people who check IDs. Daniel walked half a step behind, one hand on her elbow the way stage directors guide actors through a dark backstage. His hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail. No jewelry, flat shoes, a choice that telegraphed either practicality or escape. "Mom." Rebecca leaned to hug me, and I gave her a shoulder she could bounce off of. "Thank you for coming, Daniel," I said and offered my hand. He squeezed at once, quick and firmer than expected, like he was sending code through bone. There is a ritual to apologies performed in restaurants. First, you fuss with the menus so the air can clear itself. Then you tell a story about traffic. You sigh about the price of gas. You let the server build a small fort of plates. Only then do you look at the person you wronged and try a sentence that can carry the weight of what you did. Rebecca skipped most of that. She placed her palms together as if she thought she could pray me open. "I was wrong," she said. "I lost my temper. I scared you. I cut my lasagna into sensible squares and let the steam fog my reading glasses. You hired men to chase me through alleys," I said. "You didn't lose your temper. You leased it." A muscle jumped in her cheek. "Mom, let her finish," Daniel said, and he made it sound like kindness. Rebecca inhaled through her nose the way girls do right before they try on womanhood. I panicked. "Things are complicated, but I have a plan and it won't require your help after tonight. I just need you to unlock a small piece, and then you'll never hear about this again." I set my fork down and folded my hands. The years teach you how to move your face the way you move your legs on ice. Slowly with respect. "What piece?" "Collateral," she said, and smiled as if the word had ever kept anyone warm. The server arrived with bread and politeness. We all thanked him like actors hitting cues. When he left, Daniel picked at the crust and kept his eyes on the table. He isn't a timid man. Under easier weather, he laughs with his whole body, kneads dough like it owes him interest, and argues with television pundits across the kitchen. Tonight he was a script written by someone else. Fewer lines, no reaction shots. I turned my water glass a quarter turn so the condensation would creep in a different direction. "No," I said. "We haven't even talked numbers," Rebecca said, which was when I knew she'd never hear the words underneath mine. She reached into her jacket, too quick, too practiced, and set an envelope against the bread plate like a magician dropping a clue. "Take this home if you want. It's just a list. People who can help. Options. I'm being responsible." Daniel's jaw moved as if he were chewing a thought. Then, as if he needed more napkin, he drew his hand to the side of his plate and slid the paper triangle toward me. When his fingers left the linen, I saw the bottom edge, a faint line of ballpoint, words written upside down to anyone but me. "Don't sign anything. She has a second phone." I didn't let my eyes dive. I didn't let my face betray the drop in my stomach. the fear that had a man's handwriting and a bruise of a shadow under its eye. I laid my palm casually over the napkin, and as I lifted the glass with my other hand, dragged the linen onto my lap, Daniel's breath left him as quietly as a small apology. Rebecca began to talk about plans, people who owed her favors. A woman named Vincent who tolerated deadlines like traditions, honored until they weren't. A woman called Kingston who ran programs for lost girls and didn't care whose money made kids stay. The words fell out of her in the practiced order of a speech she tried on in the mirror. If you've ever taken a cheap watch apart, you know the feeling. Gears that almost convince you they're delicate until a tooth scratches your finger and reminds you what metal does. I let her rattle. I nodded in the places where a television audience would want the camera to cut to a sympathetic close-up. I ate the lasagna because blood sugar is a less forgiving creditor than Vincent will ever be. When the server brought coffee, Daniel reached for his spoon and dropped it. "Clumsy," he said, and ducked low to fetch it from the floor. People who bend at the waist to retrieve things do it because they can. People who bend from the knees do it because they must. He bent from the knees. While he was down there, his hand brushed my shoe, and another folded scrap of paper slid into the cuff of my sock. He rose with a wince you wouldn't notice unless you'd held a crying baby at 3 a.m. and learned the language of small sounds. "Sorry," he said to no one and everyone. Rebecca kept talking, so it's simple. We just need temporary access. 36 hours in and out. I wouldn't ask, Mom, but you know I'm good for it this time. "You've never been good for it," I said, not unkindly. "That's the problem." She opened her mouth. I lifted a hand, and she went quiet in the old offended way of girls who grew up under women who left rooms when truths were inconvenient. "You're asking me to mortgage the girl's future to pay the toll on a bridge you set on fire?" I said. "I won't do it." Color climbed her neck. "I'm offering you a chance to be useful." "I am useful," I said, "just not to you." The silence that followed was the heavy kind. The kind that sits at the table and calls itself a guest. Daniel broke it by addressing the room. "We're grateful you came," he said, eyes still on his plate. "Whatever happens next, thank you for the evening." When the bill came, I took it because I'm old-fashioned in the ways that don't lead to ruin. Rebecca let me because she's modern in the ways that do. As we stood, Daniel reached as if to embrace me and settled for a touch on my forearm. It lasted less than a heartbeat and said more than 3 paragraphs could have handled in that bright room. Outside, the night had the kind of clean chill that edits a day into something manageable. Rebecca walked me to the curb. "Think about the envelope," she said, and it was a threat dressed like thrift store grace. "I will," I said, and left it sitting exactly where she placed it. I watched them walk away reflected in the restaurant window because that's how you see people as they are, backward without the masks they wear for your benefit. Her shoulders squared like a debt. His hand didn't find her elbow this time. Back in my car, I eased the scrap of paper from my sock. The handwriting was small and terrified of its own courage. "She has a non-contract phone in the garage. Password is our wedding date. She's planning to place Emma on Monday to show commitment. If you try to stop her, she will say you're unstable. She told me to be sweet tonight. Please, Mrs. Hayes, I don't know what else to do." I read it twice and then a third time, each pass sanding a different splinter. Monday. Today was Thursday. 4 days until someone wears the word discipline like a pressed suit and calls my granddaughter client. 4 days until women with clipboards tell me it's legal because the fine print says so. I drove past my house and kept going as if motion itself could grow a plan. Lights slid over the hood, a steady strobe of red and white logic. I called Sullivan and read her the note. She listened like a woman harvesting rain with buckets. "We'll pull the restaurant footage," she said, "and I'll start the process for a temporary protective order. In the morning, talk to your attorney about emergency guardianship contingencies." "What about the second phone?" I asked. "We can't touch it without a warrant," she said. "And I heard the unspoken yet. But you can document, photograph. Don't open apps. Don't delete. Don't snoop past what the lock allows. Treat it like you're photographing a bear. Close enough to prove you've seen it. Far enough not to get bit." "I understand. I do my best work with homework." At home, I didn't turn on the living room lights. The house felt like a person holding its breath. I laid Daniel's note beside my own notebook and wrote beneath last night's list. Photograph any alternate devices. Call the girls' school. Add pickup restrictions. Bank. Flag any accounts with my name. No third-party access. Locksmith. Tomorrow first thing. Talk to Dorothy 2 doors down. Ask if she'll keep an eye out. Buy a fireproof lockbox. Move documents. Then I called the school. Left a message that did not mention monsters, but detailed monsters' behaviors. New faces at pickup. Sudden authorized parties. A grandmother who will be there in person. The answering service took my calm like water. After that, I called a friend at the bank. She owes me nothing, which is why she picks up. We talked about daily limits and fraud flags, about how to make money move as slowly as conscience. I wrote down what she taught me, and underlined the parts that tasted like margin of error. Around 10, I went out walking again. Not because I wanted company from any shadow, but because I needed to remind my legs what courage feels like when it's distributed properly through a body. At the corner, Dorothy waved from her porch swing and asked about the night air. I lied the way you lie to neighbors you intend to bring into the truth, carefully and with pie. It's good for the heart, I said. Then stay out of it, she said and laughed. Age earns you that kind of comedy. Back inside, I opened a drawer I haven't opened in months and removed the small mechanical camera I can work without looking. The battery still held a stubborn charge. I set it beside my keys. I placed a flashlight where my hand would fall to it in the dark. I checked the front door twice and the back door 3 times because patterns calm the mind and sometimes fool will into obedience. In bed, sleep flirted and then remembered other invitations. I lay on my side and let the ceiling be blank. I thought of the girl Emma drawing space whales on butcher paper and telling me facts about stars, as if they were family details I ought to remember for holidays. I pictured her at a program where strangers would translate her wonder into defiance and invoice it. If I were 30, I would make myself a promise to become the kind of woman who could stop this. At 70, you understand promises are not wishes. They're calendars. Monday is not an idea. It is 4 squares away. You fill each square with verbs, or you live with the nouns other people pick for you. I set my alarm for early. The kind of early that makes coffee taste like a fresh start. Before I closed my eyes, I texted the unknown number. We met. Thank you for the warning. I am moving. The reply came after a long breath. She keeps that phone in a red toolbox top drawer. Be careful and thank you. In the dark, I let myself think of Robert. The way he would stand at the sink and argue with his own reflection about mercy. You can love someone without letting them hurt you, he'd say, and flick water from his fingers like blessings. I am late to that lesson, but I am present. I will not finance my granddaughter's nightmares. I will not confuse forgiveness with funding. Tomorrow I start gathering proof. Tomorrow I make the kind of noise the law respects. Tonight I sleep in a house that used to memorize our laughter and is learning new songs. The clock in the hall ticked its same steady tick, and I counted just enough to remember, I'm here. At first light, the house felt newly rented by the same old woman. Same mug, same chair. But everything inside them was pointed forward. I made coffee strong enough to pass for advice and started feeding paper to my little printer. Notes from last night written clean. Times rounded to the minute. Names spelled the way cops and judges prefer them. When you're an old woman fighting momentum, paper is your traction. By 8, the locksmith was on my stoop. A cheerful veteran with forearms like dowels and a belt that clinked when she breathed. I let her talk about cylinders and tolerances and picked the locks that sounded like they'd rather not be argued with. She installed a peephole that made the street look farther away than it is, and a latch that clicked with the same confidence as a good handshake. Someone giving you trouble, Mrs. Hayes? She asked, not nosy so much as neighborly. Someone confusing family and leverage, I said. She nodded like that was a style of trouble she'd seen go in and out of fashion. Call me if you want cameras that don't argue either. She left 2 extra keys, and the kind of smile women offer each other when they both agree not to say, "Be careful," out loud. From there I went to the school. The secretary knows me by my weather. How often I arrive in rain with an umbrella and a joke. She buzzed me in and lowered her voice the way people do around real things. "We can add a pickup password," she said, typing, "and a note only released to grandmother and father, unless prior notice from both parties. It isn't law, but it's a layer." "Layers keep you warm," I said. As I signed the form, a class passed the office window. Small faces, loud shoes. Emma didn't see me because 6-year-olds are too busy being 6 to notice any universe but their own. Her teacher did, though, and gave me a nod that said she's filed my face under shows up. I don't wear dresses for intimidation anymore. I wear them to remind myself I'm the woman who made some good choices, too. In the private room they reserve for accounts with stories, my friend, the manager closed the door and leaned on the table like an ally who knows exactly which kind of help she can legally offer. "We can add daily caps," she said. "Require in-person verification for any new authorized users. I'll flag unusual activity and call you before I let a nickel out the door. And if anyone tries creative banking with my name," I asked. "We get religion about signatures," she said. "And we ask questions with witnesses present." I liked that polite procedural suspicion. She printed forms. I initialed boxes with letters that looked like they'd been through a windstorm and learned to stand up anyway. On the way home, Sullivan called. The line carried the hum of a precinct that never quite sits down. "We've got the request in motion for a temporary order," she said. "It won't be magic, but it's paint on the field." "Good," I said. "Daniel says there's a second phone, red toolbox, top drawer. She keeps it on." "Don't touch it," Sullivan said. That calm that comes from giving the same warning 100 times. "Photograph what's in plain view, but keep your hands where a DA won't have to explain them later." "I'm housebroken," I said. "And I won't go alone." The doorbell rang 10 minutes after I set the phone down. 2 uniforms on my stoop, mid-20s, polite as a handbook. The taller one had the look of a woman who hates the part of her job where old people get scared. "Mrs. Hayes, we got a call," she said. Anonymous said there's an elderly female acting confused at this address. There it was. The pinch you feel when a girl who once asked you to tie her shoes starts tying knots around your reputation. I stepped back and opened the door. "Come in," I said. "We can do your checklist. I'll make you coffee if you like it black." They didn't sit. They looked for signs. Spilled pill bottles, burnt toast. I walked them through my morning, recited the date, the name of the mayor, my own address without looking at the mail on the table. I handed them the list I'd printed for myself. Calls made, people notified, locks changed. The shorter one, a man with an honest face, read it all and nodded. "You want us to write up that we were here at this time and had no concerns?" he asked. "I do," I said. "And I'd like the case number if you have one handy." They left with apologies you can't put on paper. The door clicked behind them, and the air in the living room got 2 degrees warmer. I texted Sullivan, "Preemptive smear. 2 officers all clear." She wrote back a single word, "logged," which felt like a blanket pulled up to the chin of my day. At noon, the unknown number, Daniel, lit my phone. "She's at Vincent's garage open for 30 minutes. I can keep the dog in the kitchen." I brought Dorothy. She's the type of neighbor who can make an alibi sound like a bake sale. She wore a visor and carried a tote that said, "Farmers Market" in green letters because blending in is its own art. We parked a block away. Daniel's house sat in the calm of a Thursday that wanted to be ordinary. I could feel my heart arranging itself into a drumline. The garage door groaned up when I pressed the button she'd left on the mailbox ledge. The space smelled like women try to bridal mess with shelves. Oil, metal, the clean lie of plastic bins. The red toolbox stood where she said it would. Top drawer asking to be ignored. I opened it an inch, no more than that, and there it was. The black rectangle of a non-contract phone. Rubber case, cheap and pleated. A crack snaking the corner like a lightning bolt, trying to retire. The screen buzzed to life without my help. Lock screen, 3 notifications across the top. Just enough preview to make a priest swear. Unknown. Monday 9 a.m. Intake confirmed. A name, Kingston. Need proof of commitment by Sunday night. No more talk. Another unknown. Second half after tonight. Don't overdo it this time. I didn't touch the screen. I didn't swipe. I lifted my old mechanical camera and took 3 photos from 3 angles. Then one of the drawer as a whole and one of the box as I found it. In the corner, Daniel stood with his arms wrapped around himself as if he'd forgotten what to do with his hands when they weren't baking bread or steadying a child's backpack strap. "Anything else?" I whispered. He nodded toward the pegboard above the workbench. A paper was pinned there, letterhead with a logo of a sun rising over a fence. New Horizons Youth Leadership. It chirped the kind of euphemism women invent when they need their invoices to sleep at night. I photographed that too. The address, the intake instructions, the list of items discouraged because they interfere with growth. "Take the flyer," he said. "I won't," I said, "but I'll get a copy later." We were almost done when a car we didn't want to know turned onto the block. Its engine had the throat-clearing sound of women who like to be heard. Daniel glanced at his watch and went pale. "She's early," he said. "Go." I pulled the drawer closed with the same pressure I'd used to open it. Dorothy's visor bobbed in the passenger seat as I slid behind the wheel. We coasted, then idled, then joined traffic like we had no idea what a coincidence was. In the rear view, I caught Daniel stepping onto the porch, smoothing his shirt, practicing the smile that lets women believe they've fooled you. Back home, I made duplicates, printed the photos on paper thick enough to feel like a decision. I labeled every page with time and place, and no contact with device in neat block letters. One set for Sullivan, one for my attorney, one for the lockbox I bought at noon, and fed with the slow respect of a woman putting away winter clothes. Sullivan met me at the precinct coffee machine that hides in a hallway like a rumor. I handed her the envelope with the photographs, and the school notes, and the bank confirmations. She thumbed the edges without looking at the contents. An old cop trick that tells you she trusts you and will verify you later. "Good work," she said. "This moves us from concerned to actionable. I'll get a detective to drive by the New Horizons address and see what kind of fence their sunrise is behind. Do I go there myself?" I asked. "Absolutely not," she said, and smiled to make the word feel less like a door. "We do the part where uniforms talk to uniforms. You do the part where you keep breathing and show up on Monday if we need you in a courtroom." On the way out, I stopped by my attorney's office to drop a copy of everything and sign where she'd left fluorescent flags like breadcrumbs. Emergency guardianship was the phrase of the day. She explained it in a way that didn't condescend. Temporary authority with teeth designed for storms, not summers. "Bring the girl into your house over the weekend," she said. "Not in a way that escalates. Just a sleepover with pancakes. Demonstrate continuity of care. Judges like continuity. Everyone likes pancakes," I said. Near dusk, I walked the neighborhood with a flashlight in one pocket and the little camera in the other. Practice, not paranoia. Dorothy fell into step like a metronome and told me gossip about a house 2 streets over that painted its shutters a color blue. The HOA will miss on purpose for 3 entire meetings. The street lamps came on, polite and punctual. For a moment, the world pretended to be a place where schedules beat schemes. Back inside, I set small traps a decent woman can set. Timers on lights in rooms I don't sit in. Motion alarms that chirp instead of scream. Notes taped to the inside of the front door reminding me what to bring every time I leave. Phone, keys, copy of the temporary order when it arrives. Patience. I moved the important papers to the new lockbox and put the lockbox in a place that would make a thief work. And a judge nod. At 9, the unknown number buzzed again. "She suspects you. She said you suddenly got competent. Please don't come back here unless I say. How people praise you when they intend to kill your leverage." I typed slowly. "Understood. Sunday, I'll ask to have Emma over. Keep your phone safe. If you need out, text me the word pie." He sent a small, desperate laugh in letter form. Pie. Okay. I sat at the desk and wrote the timeline again, this time as if the paper itself would have to tell the story, in a room where I might be too tired to make it sing. Thursday dinner, Friday locksmith, school note, bank flags, welfare check, garage photos. I drew a line to Monday and kept that box clean. When I was a younger woman, I believed the thing you needed to save a child was courage. Courage helps, but paper moves judges, and judges move doors. So I made paper. I made enough for 3 storms and a drought. Just after 10, a car rolled slow past my house. Then again, I didn't look through the blinds. I looked at the wall where a picture used to hang and studied the pattern the sun had bleached into the paint. A ghost rectangle, proof that something once lived there. The car idled, then left. Sometimes power is a woman wanting you to see her, seeing you. Sometimes power is choosing not to perform your fear on her schedule. I slept in clothes that could pass for answering the door if they had to. Before I turned off the light, I laid a note on the nightstand, addressed to the morning version of me. You're doing enough. Breathe, eat, walk, paper, kindness. Tomorrow I would buy pancake mix and say nothing about court orders to a girl who names her stuffed animals after planets. I would ask Daniel if he had a bag packed in his mind just in case. I would call the precinct at noon if I hadn't heard from Sullivan, not because I doubted her, but because I'm learning the rhythm of this dance. Quiet, then step, shadow, then paper, love, then boundary. If I keep my footing, Monday will find me not at a fence watching the sun rise on a lie, but at a table with a judge who can read. And if I stumble, it will not be for lack of trying in the hours between now and then. The clock in the hallway counted on, impartial as weather. I let it. Saturday started like a woman trying to remember how to live in a house and not a bunker. Coffee lists, a quick glance at the front walk for tire marks that weren't there. I was halfway through buttering toast when the unknown number lit up. Can you talk? I called. Daniel answered in a whisper that had learned its lesson. I have the phone, he said. She showered. I took screenshots. I'm sending them now and deleting the previews. My screen filled with proof in the plain language of women who mistake nerve for intelligence. A thread with a contact saved as V. Vincent. No last name needed. V. Second half after tonight. Don't overdo it this time. R. Scare her, not hospital. She pays when she's scared. V. Copy. Another with Kingston. R. Monday, 9 a.m. intake. I'll show commitment. Kingston without commitment. There is no placement, no refunds, and one that made the room tilt. R. Calling welfare on her now. Elderly female confused. Send boys after. The timestamp on that last one matched the knock at my door, and the visit from the polite young officers down to the minute. I didn't need a red string on a corkboard. The phone had done the knitting. I forwarded the shots to Detective Sullivan and my attorney, then called Sullivan as if the phone could move my feet faster. This is it, she said, voice gone flat with the relief of a woman given the tool she asked for. We'll mirror the images from your device and get a warrant for his. You did not touch the source. That matters. I'll call the weekend judge about a temporary protective order for you and the girl. Good, I said. Today I'll do my part. I texted Daniel. Pancakes tomorrow. Emma sleeps here tonight. We'll do the planet song. He replied so fast the letters tripped over each other. Yes, I'll pack a bag. I'll say it's a treat. She won't refuse. She wants you compliant. Offense looks like ordinary kindness from the outside. I spent the morning turning proof into packets. Each screenshot got a title, a timestamp, and a caption in my black block handwriting. Threat coordination, planned placement, false welfare call. I made 3 sets and took one to the precinct. Sullivan thumbed through until she reached the text about elderly female confused. She let out a breath that had the shape of a small, contained swear. She also texted the word placement, I said. Juries read plain English, she said, and judges sign orders for it. She loaned me a small recorder. Legal here if at least one party in the conversation consents. If she tries for money again, keep her talking. Meet in public. Don't threaten. Ask open questions. What exactly do you need me to do? That kind of thing. I can play dumb, I said. I've had practice. On the way home, I stopped for pancake mix and blueberries, because guardianship hearings are built on paper, and also on how 6-year-olds remember weekends. I bought a cheap spiral notebook just for Emma, and wrote her name on the cover like a homesteader staking a claim. At noon, Daniel arrived with Emma, and a backpack full of explanations that sounded like pajamas. She launched into the house like an astronaut, narrating. "Grandma, did you know some whales sleep with one half of their brain? I tried it, but I bumped into the couch. She smelled like crayons in the outside of a school. I knelt to her height. We'll do blueberry constellations in pancakes," I said. "We'll name them after whichever whales keep you from bumping into things." Behind her, Daniel stood with a grocery bag. His eyes traveled the room, making an inventory of safety. Locks, windows, the way a chair could be pushed against a door in a pinch. When Emma ran to the kitchen to inspect blueberries like jewels, he handed me another folded note and 2 folded T-shirts too small for adult trouble. "She told Kingston Monday is final. She will make me say you're unwell if I refuse. I saved voice memos. I'm scared. We're moving," I said. "Tonight she sleeps here. Tomorrow we make a memory. Monday morning there will be paper in a judge's hand." He nodded as if the word paper were a bridge he could see. I told her I'm taking Emma to my sister's for the afternoon. She's out handling things. The way he said it made things sound like someone else's bad idea. "If you need me to testify, your safety first," I said, but yes, if you can. After he left, the house brightened the way a kitchen does when it learns it will be useful. We cooked, we ate, we built a solar system from pancakes and berries and toothpicks. And when Emma fell asleep halfway through a documentary about whales that might as well have starred her, I tucked her into the guest bed that used to be Robert's study room and put the notebook on the nightstand like a seal. At 3, Sullivan called with that efficient impatience that means good news and a to-do list. "We've got a temporary protective order. No contact, no pickups without your consent. No placements. It covers 72 hours. It's not a shield. It's a spotlight. Serve it fast. We have a car to swing by her place and hand it to her. The guardianship petition is filed. Judge will see it Monday at 9. And Vincent," I asked. "Car plate from the diner matched one of her regulars. We're not arresting on regular, but it tells me we're fishing in the right lake." She hesitated, then added, "If you can get Rebecca to say out loud that she paid for scare, not hospital. We move this from family dispute to conspiracy and extortion. Do not put yourself in harm's way to get it." I looked down the hall toward the small sleeping shape. "I'm not the harm's way type," I said, and set the recorder on the entry table where my hand would find it on instinct. At 5, Rebecca texted as if dinner had taught her nothing and everything. "You ready to be reasonable?" I put on the voice of a woman who has learned to flinch at the right times. "Maybe let's talk tomorrow morning. Bank Cafe 10. I'll bring what you want to see." She took the bait like a woman who'd been starving by choice. 10 is fine. Don't be dramatic. I set the phone down and pulled a chair into the habit it had around my table. A spot with sightlines to the front walk, the driveway, the place where wheels would stop if someone tried being dramatic on my behalf. The doorbell rang just after 6. 2 officers again. But these wore the comfortable expressions of women delivering paper, not questions. "Temporary order," the older one said. "Served to Ms. Rebecca Hayes at her residence." She read the language out loud the way the law likes it. "No contact, no harassment, no interference with minor child's custody pending hearing." She handed me a copy with a case number that looked like a row of fence posts. "Thank you," I said. "I'll keep it in my pocket like a saint's medal." After they left, the house took a deep breath. I wrote called, served at 6:04 p.m. on my timeline, then sat in the quiet and listened for panic that didn't come. It's a strange feeling when momentum switches teams. You spend days braced for the blow, and then realize you're the one moving the line. I must have dozed in the chair because I woke to Emma sitting cross-legged on the rug, with the recorder in her lap like a toy she'd discovered. "What's this, Grandma?" "A thing that remembers what people say," I told her. "We use it when we want to pay attention." "Like a brain," she said, satisfied, and handed it back. Can we make the Neptune pancake tomorrow? We can make 2 Neptunes, I said, because this was a day to be extravagant with Blue. When she was asleep again, I sat at the desk and practiced the questions Sullivan had suggested, saying them out loud to the lamplight, as if it were a woman with a blue blouse who liked to smile at servers. So tell me what exactly I need to do. How does the second half work? What proof do they need from us? Why did you send those men? Why the welfare call? Say the words you said to them. Scare her, not hospital. Why that? They sounded like a lecture a stubborn student might attend by accident and learn from despite herself. I put the recorder in my inside pocket and the protective order in the outside one, where my hand could find it without looking. At 8:40, the unknown number buzzed again. A voice memo this time. Daniel had held his phone near a door and captured a throatier voice than my daughter saying, "She'll cave tomorrow. She's 70. She shouldn't even be driving. Tell Kingston she'll see commitment." Another voice. Rebecca muttered agreement and added, "If she plays martyr, I'll file to have her evaluated. Old women fold when a doctor shows up." I sent the file to Sullivan, then to my attorney, then backed it up to a flash drive because my generation survives by not trusting a single basket with our eggs. "Good," Sullivan texted. "Don't send that to Rebecca. Let her talk fresh. We'll have plainclothes near the bank. You won't see us, but we'll see you." I slept in the guest room across from Emma's because distance is a luxury I don't permit myself when a small heartbeat is in the house. At 3 a.m, I woke to the kind of quiet that can go either way. I walked the hall, thumbed the locks, and stood at the window long enough for the glass to learn the shape of my forehead. A car rolled by without slowing. Somewhere a dog barked at a story only dogs can hear. Sunday broke clean. Pancakes, planets, church on the radio, because the habit of gratitude doesn't care where it finds its hymn. I dressed in the dress that says, "You can trust this woman to do boring things correctly," slid the recorder into my inner pocket, and tucked the protective order where a wallet would be if I were the kind of woman who carried cash. At 9:45, I handed Emma her spiral, notebook and a pencil, and told her to list every planet she could remember while Dorothy and her crossword sat in the next room pretending not to. Guard a small universe. She took the job with the seriousness of a clerk and the joy of a 6-year-old given a mission. Back by lunch, I told Dorothy, "If you're not," she said, "I'll call the cavalry," and then the gossip chain. At 10 on the dot, Rebecca slid into the chair across from me at the bank's cafe like she was playing herself on television. She looked good in the way drought looks good right before the dust storm. "Let's be adults," she said. "I'm here," I said, which is as adult as I get. I set the envelope on the table, a stack of papers thick enough to require a choice, thin enough to deny her the pleasure of theatrics. On top sat the protective order. She didn't touch it. She glanced at it and smiled. "Cute," she said. "You think that changes how this works?" "It changes where the boundaries are painted," I said. She leaned in. "Here's what you do. You sign the access papers I brought." She tapped her jacket. "And you bring the girl to orientation tomorrow so they know you're on board. You say the words, 'We are committed to this program.' You can even pretend it was your idea. Then you go home and feel noble. I get my timeline. Everyone wins." I breathed through my nose until the oxygen remembered what lungs were for. "Who do I pay exactly?" "Vincent handles the first half. Kingston signs the intake," she said. "Casual, almost bored. Then the rest. That's how it's done." "And the men you sent to chase me through alleys?" I asked. "What does Vincent call that on the invoice?" She blinked. "Cost of doing business. Your text said scare her, not hospital." I said, light as weather. "Why that?" "Because hospital would make you a martyr," she said, annoyed that I'd asked a question with only one correct answer. I looked at the recorder-shaped fact in my pocket and allowed myself one small secret mercy, the feeling of a nail setting where the hammer wants it. I kept my face blank and my tone soft. "And the welfare call?" I asked. She smiled like a girl about to confess to a prank that got the teacher to cry. You've been confused for years. I just made it honest. I pushed the protective order across the table so it could do its work without my help. You are not to contact me or Emma outside counsel, I said. You are not to pick her up, place her, or scare her smart. If you try, there will be paper, and people who wear the kind of belts that clink when they breathe. The mask slipped then just an inch. Her eyes did the quick math of women who learn late that the bill is due, and the tip is mandatory. She stood. You'll regret this, she said, because we are all our catchphrases eventually. I already regret plenty, I said. This isn't on the list. She left. I stayed sitting because standing would have wasted the steadiness I just earned. I texted Sullivan. She said the words. Recorder ran. We're done here. On the walk to the car, a sedan I recognized from a night that had gone long idled at the corner. It rolled forward a foot, decided against whatever it had been considering, then rolled on. I didn't flinch. I noted the plate again, and the dent near the rear light, and the way the driver rested 2 fingers at 12, like a woman trying to make fate keep its lane. Back home, Emma looked up from her list. She had added Pluto still counts with the stubbornness I adore. I ruffled her hair and felt the hot shame of gratitude at how light her head still is. A Neptune pancakes? She asked. 2 Neptunes, I said, and turned the stove on like a woman who has finally turned the story. Sunday noon tasted like blueberries and victory. The recorder on my desk held my daughter's own words like a nail set true. The protective order warm in my pocket, where a wallet would warm from body heat and stubbornness. I let the house be a house for a while. Pancakes, dishwater, Emma's commentary on which planets should be promoted or demoted, and why Pluto is brave. Grandma. And brave counts. The first knock after lunch wasn't a knock. It was the doorbell pressed 3 polite times by someone trained to make trouble sound like procedure. 2 people stood on my stoop, a uniform I didn't know, and a clinician with a clipboard held like a shield. Mrs. Hayes, the clinician said in the tone kindergarten teachers use to ask if anyone needs the bathroom. We received a report of a possible welfare concern. We're required to check in. Behind my ribs, something old and tired tightened. I opened the door wide enough to let reason through, and left the chain latched, because my generation learned the difference between courtesy and opportunity the same way we learned how to fix a leaky faucet after water got on the floor. You're welcome to see I'm upright, I said, and you're welcome to see a court order that bars my daughter from contacting or retrieving my granddaughter pending hearing. I showed them the paper. The officer read it out loud, which I admit I like best about the law, its appetite for hearing itself. The clinician asked me who the president was, what day it was, and whether I'd eaten, as if a sandwich might stave off dementia. I had 2 Neptunes, I said, which confused her, but the girl appeared with blueberry stains like a badge and announced, She means pancakes, Mom. That helped. They were decent. They examined nothing they didn't need to, wrote down more than anyone will read, and left me with a case number and a soft apology for being instruments someone else had played. Ma'am, the officer added at the threshold, if anyone keeps weaponizing wellness checks against you, keep a list with times. It adds up for judges. I tapped the notebook on my hall table. Paper is my new religion. When their cruiser pulled away, the phone hummed. Daniel, she's furious. She said, try it again. She's old. They'll fold her. If I go quiet, it's because I'm riding in the same air and can't risk it. Understood, I wrote. Sunday is for paper. Monday is for doors. By late afternoon, the street had that washed look neighborhoods get when dinner is happening in most kitchens at once. Dorothy brought over a casserole with the attitude of a woman who bakes to give her hands something to do besides throttle a woman on her neighbor's behalf. You look like you need protein, she said, and I look like I need to feel useful. When the sun dipped toward the roofs, the sedan with the dent near the taillight toured the block again. It didn't stop, it measured. I didn't bend a blind. I counted the seconds it took to pass my hedge and wrote them down. Because sometimes the thing that says we can do what we want is a car moving so slowly, it forgets to pretend it's in a hurry. At 6:30, the unknown number lit the screen with a single word, pie. I called, Daniel whispered. She moved it up tonight. She says orientation can happen after paperwork if we show spirit. She's calling Kingston now. She left to get leverage. My mouth went dry in the way doctors warn you about before they give you a pill that tastes like chemistry. Where are you? Home. I told her I was making dinner. I'm packing a small bag as if I'm running late, not running away. Stay put, I said. If she comes back, lock the door and call 911. Say the words protective order and minor child. Don't negotiate in verbs. Go straight to nouns. I hung up and texted Sullivan. She's moving tonight. Daniel sent code. Expect attempt at pickup or move to facility. She replied with what a woman uses when she can't afford poetry. On it. Unit en route to him. Plain clothes to your block. Do not open your door. Record. Stay on the line if anything starts. I set the recorder on the hall table where my fingers could find it with one hand, while the other found the order. Then I did a thing a Robert would have laughed at and approved. I practiced saying I do not consent to contact. The way he used to practice difficult recipes, until the kitchen learned the motions and forgot the nerves. After 7, the house changed key. The girl in the guest room breathed the long, easy breaths of a creature who believes adults are doing their jobs. The motion chime on the back porch flirted with a false alarm, then thought better of it. I heard a car door thunk. Another. Gravel spoke. Footsteps. The slow kind women take when they want you to hear that there are more than one. The doorbell didn't ring. The pounding came like hail. I didn't flinch. I moved with intention. Lamp off. Whole light on. Chain steady. Recorder tipped live. I stood where the peephole gave me 2 faces. My daughter's. Waxy with purpose. And Vincent's handsome in the way bad women sometimes are, to make it easier for the camera to find them. Open up, Rebecca said. Too loud for the porch. Loud enough for the street. Through the door, soft as weather. You are not permitted to contact me or pick up Emma. You have been served. This contact is a violation of a court order. Leave. That paper is nothing, Vincent said. Paper burns. Not in judge's hands, I said, because some lines are worth the small satisfaction. You bring her out, Rebecca hissed. And there was the panic. There was the teenage mistake hiding inside a 38-year-old woman. We do orientation tonight and you sign. Nobody wants this to get ugly. I held the order close enough for the peephole to read it. Orientation is Monday at 9, I said, with a judge. Vincent leaned into the peephole and made her eye my whole world for 1 second. Old woman, she said, and it was almost affectionate. You're making this cost more than it should. Blue light feathered the street then, subtle as far thunder. Someone down the block, bless the nosy, had called. Or Sullivan's plainclothes had tapped the tree they were hiding behind. Vincent saw it the way women see weather and judge its habits. She stepped back. Rebecca stepped forward, hand raised like she might knock again with her fist, and my face in her mind. Do not, I said softly, so the recorder could catch each letter and the law could staple them to a future. She didn't. Vincent caught her sleeve. Not tonight, she said, not with the paint on the field. They retreated in a tangle of anger they'd blame on me. The sedan's engine cleared its throat and left with the quiet of a cat, humiliated by a closed door. I watched the tail light dent go until it turned into someone else's problem. I stood very still because that's when I felt it. A tight band cinching under my sternum. Not a knife, not a spear. More like a belt pulled 1 notch too far. I breathed and the belt did not loosen. I drank water and the belt considered its options. I told myself the truth. I am 70, not indestructible. I dialed the number I never wanted Emma to dial on my behalf. 911, what's your emergency? This is not an emergency yet, I said, because women like me argue terms with reality. But my chest is negotiating and I'd like it to lose. The paramedics were competent in the way that makes you want to hand them your whole life on a tray and let them sort it. They kept their voices level and their hands decisive. They wired me to a monitor whose green line looked like the handwriting of a woman who learned cursive late. They said the words precaution, rule out, and better to be bored than sorry, which is a kind of love. I had Dorothy on the porch before they loaded me. "You have Emma?" I asked. "She's drawing planets for the paramedic," she said. "If I weren't me, I'd marry her tomorrow for her opinions on Saturn's rings. Tell her I'll be back by bedtime," I said, which felt like theft until the paramedic said, "Sounds like a plan." In the ambulance, I texted Sullivan. "I'm headed to the ER. Not dramatic, just prudent." She wrote back with unexpected tenderness. "Good. Let us be dramatic for once. The ER is a place where time behaves like a dog without a leash, running, doubling back, sticking its nose into things and calling that progress. They took blood. They placed stickers in a constellation across my chest without asking which galaxy. A doctor with a calm face and tired eyes told me we were not talking about a heart attack right now, which is how doctors speak when they want you to relax without quitting. "We'll keep you a few hours," she said. "Stress does what stress does. You two need a divorce. I'm seeing other people," I said, and she smiled because gallows humor is a handshake in a place where handshakes have to be short. I lay there and watched the green line perform its persistent dance, and thought of a girl asleep in a room that smelled like thread and bread dough and old wool. I thought of my daughter telling a woman named after a church that commitment could be measured in signatures and suffering. I thought of Robert, his fingers flicking water and blessing over a sink. He kept cleaner than the conscience of anyone in this story. The phone buzzed. "Sullivan, unit with Daniel." Rebecca came home spoiling for it. We reminded her about the order. She shattered a plate. "We did not arrest a plate." She left. "We'll sit on the house tonight." "Thank you," I wrote. She replied with the one word I have come to trust most from good women. "Logged." Another buzz. "Daniel." She called Kingston. "I heard tonight didn't work. Tomorrow we force it." Kingston said the window closes at 9. "I am so tired." "Hold," I wrote. "Sleep if you can. If she threatens you, call. Tomorrow is paper." And then another from a number I didn't recognize. A text forwarded by a plainclothes whose name I never got. Vincent to Rebecca. "If she shows up at 9, let Kingston take the girl in the lobby. Police won't grab a clipboard. If it was meant to shake me, it did its job." I stared at the ceiling tiles at the graveyard of dead bugs in the fluorescent light and felt the belt around my chest loosen one hole. I breathed around the thought. They believe procedure is camouflage. Good. Then we'll make procedure hunt. At 11, the doctor returned satisfied with her machines and my stubbornness. "You can go home if you have someone with you," she said. "Or we can keep you overnight and charge you enough to fund a wing." "I have a neighbor and a girl who believes pancakes are planets," I said. "I'll sign whatever you like and I'll be boring until Monday at 10. She made me promise to avoid excitement, which I accepted in the spirit in which it was offered as a suggestion from someone who doesn't know my calendar. On the way out, the monitor tape still clinging to me like seaweed, I dialed Sullivan. "Tomorrow morning," I said. "They think the lobby will hide them. Let it, but let the lobby hide us too. You're not coming," she said. "I'm not tackling anyone," I said. "I'm standing where a grandmother can stand. I'll bring the order. I'll bring the recorder. You bring the uniforms and the patience." She let the silence do a few push-ups. "You're not wrong," she said finally. "We'll stage it so a prosecutor doesn't have to apologize for anything but our coffee. Be at the courthouse with your attorney by 8:30. If they go to the facility first, we intercept. If they go straight to court, we greet them with paper and bracelets." "Understood," I said. "I'll be the woman in the dress that says I do boring things correctly." When Dorothy pulled the car into my driveway, the street didn't pretend anymore. A cruiser idled at either end like bookends. The motion lights made the yard look as guilty as it ever has. Inside, Emma had fallen asleep with the pencil still in her hand and a list of planets that included Grandma because 6-year-olds are allowed to count the people who keep them alive as celestial. I showered the hospital smell often put on the soft old sweater that knows when I need a hug. At the desk, I added lines to the timeline. The letters steady now. Welfare check weaponized. Protective order enforced. Attempted pickup. ER visit. Discharge. Plan set. I underlined Monday and drew a small square in the margin and wrote inside it, in Robert's voice, because I've earned the right to borrow it. Hold the line. Near 2 a.m, the unknown number blinked. She's quiet. I think she's sleeping. If not, she's pretending for me. I'm leaving a bag in the trunk. If I can run, I will run toward daylight. Daylight is in 6 hours. I typed. And for once it felt like the truth and not a plea. I lay down in the chair in the hall across from the guest room door, because distance is for people who trust night not to invent errands. The house settled like an animal circling twice before sleeping. I kept my shoes on. I held the protective order in one hand and the recorder in the other, and let my pulse count itself into something like rest. If I fail now, I thought, the belt returns. The girl learns that the word program can be made to do ugly work, and my daughter discovers how thin a woman can get before the wind whistles through her. If I hold, morning brings paper and doors and the kind of noise the law respects. I slept. Or if I didn't, I pretended well enough to fool the part of me that keeps time. Somewhere between the two, a car I didn't bother naming rolled past and didn't stop. The clock in the hall kept perfect faith with itself. Outside, the streetlights clicked off in sequence, one by one, like a chorus taking its cue. Morning came like it had read my notes. I shaved my legs, put on the dress that says I do boring things correctly, and tucked 3 items into 3 pockets by muscle memory. Inside left, the recorder. Inside right, the packet of screenshots and transcripts. Outer breast, the protective order, face out like a saint's medal. Emma ate toast shaped like moons and told me Mercury is brave because it lives so near the fire. "So are you," I said, and we both pretended not to hear the tremor in my voice. At 8:30 sharp, my attorney and I stood under the courthouse clock that thinks it's a lighthouse. Sullivan texted the way women text when they're moving pieces on a board you can't see. Facility team staged lobby comm. You stay put. If they pick court over clipboard, we're here. Logged. I breathed the coffee smell that haunts county buildings and reminded myself that paper moves doors. A bailiff I recognized by her kind eyebrows said, "Good morning." I wrote it down. Superstition maybe, but I have learned to respect small rituals that stack into courage. At 8:52, a new message from Daniel. Leaving now alone? She told me to meet her at New Horizons. I told her I'd be right behind. I am not right behind. I am parked by the grocery store 2 blocks away, with my hands shaking. Pie if it goes bad. Good, I wrote. Do not go in. Stay in the light. You did enough. At 8:59, Sullivan again. Fewer syllables than usual. Contact. Vincent with her. Kingston in lobby. Time slowed. Even the clock on the wall seemed to breathe between seconds. I could hear Robert inside my head, flicking water off his fingers. Hold the line, Maggie. At 9:03, the phone buzzed twice. Once with the punctuation of action. Once with its echo first audio rolling. She's presenting the girl's name to the desk, saying placement. Kingston asking for commitment. Second, bracelets. I didn't realize I'd been braced until my shoulders relaxed like an apology. Across the hall, my attorney's mouth formed a small, satisfied O. A deputy stepped into view, murmured into a shoulder mic, and the courthouse side of the world adjusted its tie. When the third buzz came, it was almost gentle. We have probable cause arrests on V and K for conspiracy, attempted custodial interference, and harassment. Your daughter detained for questioning. Violation of order on attempted pickup coordination. False report documented. No one is hurt. You did your job. Logged. I sat down because my legs forgot which century they were from. The courthouse bench groaned like an old friend. Mrs. Hayes. A clerk with a stack of files, and the diction of someone born to shepherd paper approached. The judge can see you on the emergency guardianship in 15. 15 is kind, I said. 15 is mercy. We went in. The courtroom smelled like wood and correction. The judge had a face carved for patience and a voice built to travel without shouting. My attorney spoke first, then Sullivan, then me, in the simple sentences of a woman who understands theatrical flourishes offer rooms that don't keep transcripts. My granddaughter sleeps in my house. My daughter planned to place her without consent to curry favor with women who collect commitments like debts. We have texts, audio, and a protective order served yesterday. We're not asking for drama. We're asking for continuity and safety. The judge paged through the packet with that quick, efficient attention that wins spelling bees and trials. "Mr. Hayes," she said to Daniel's affidavit, "you've exhibited courage and judgment." Then to me, "Mrs. Hayes, you have been busy." "I'm retired," I said. "I needed a hobby." She didn't smile, and then she did. "Temporary guardianship is granted to the father. Mrs. Hayes, you are appointed temporary co-guardian for 72 hours and continuing on good cause, shown at the review hearing. No placements, no third-party programs. Exchanges to occur at this courthouse or a precinct only. Daughter's contact suspended pending evaluation and further order. Supervised visitation may be considered after compliance with assessment and classes. Paperwork will follow in an hour. That gives you time for coffee?" I nodded in a way that tried not to leak gratitude. "Your Honor," I said, "may I have the order stamped so I can laminate it twice in my mind?" "You may," she said. "And Mrs. Hayes, eat something. Outside, under a sky that had decided to be ordinary again." Sullivan leaned against a column like a woman who knows what her spine is for. "They thought the lobby was camouflage," she said. "Turns out it's lighting." "Rebecca?" I asked. "In a room answering questions to a lawyer who will not enjoy billing this," she said. "We didn't cuff her for show. We're not here for humiliation. We're here to stop momentum. She'll be processed and released pending charge decisions if the DA's office likes our work. Today is about the girl. Always," I said. We shook hands the way women do when they understand they're done and not yet finished. She pressed a card into my palm with a number circled that didn't look like the number on the front. "Direct," she said, "for as long as you need it." By 10:15, I was back at my kitchen table with Daniel and Emma, 3 mugs, and a stack of forms that made my pen feel useful. Emma asked if courtrooms have snacks and whether Neptune would weigh more if it ate 2 pancakes. Daniel sat very straight and very still, like a bell that had just finished ringing. "It's not over," he said. "No," I agreed. "But someone moved the furniture. We spent the rest of the morning doing things judges like to see on paper. Schedules drawn, pickup plans clear, spare keys labeled, school notified with words like order on file and co-guardian. I called the bank and set up a separate account for Emma's needs only. Receipts stapled, petty cash logged, the whole operation tidy enough to make an auditor purr. We phoned a counselor recommended by the school, someone who speaks fluent 6-year-old and booked Tuesday. After lunch, my attorney turned her briefcase into a mobile office on my dining table and talked wills. I've avoided that conversation for years, the way women avoid basements during storms. Superstitious and unhelpful. Today the topic felt like clean air. "We establish a testamentary trust for Emma," she said. 2 trustees, yourself and an independent fiduciary. No distributions to her mother. Disbursements for health, education, maintenance, support. Nothing that smells like a shortcut. Letters of intent so your wishes hum under the formal text. And we tidy your health directives while we're touching paper. "Do it," I said, "all of it." I signed where the yellow flags told me to, and wrote a letter in my own hand to sit behind the glass. How we'll fund school trips and telescopes. Why we buy pancakes and not silence. How mercy and boundaries can share a table if everyone uses their napkins. Toward evening, Sullivan texted a final update that sounded like a woman closing a file she'll keep within reach. Rebecca released pending charges. Arraignment set later this week if DA files. Protective order extended temporarily by on-call judge. Facility under inspection. Kingston held. Vincent booked on unrelated warrants, which is the universe performing one of its better jokes. Sleep if possible. Logged. I read it to Daniel. His shoulders dropped half an inch, which is the human version of a fireworks display when you're very tired. He looked at Emma building a solar system out of buttons on the rug and let himself smile like a person who can see all the way to Wednesday. "Thank you," he said. "Paper and pancakes," I said. "We're a two-tool shop." When they left, Emma with her notebook, Daniel with a bag that no longer looked like an escape hatch, I stood in the doorway a while, the way women do when they're trying to memorize a gentle thing and suspect the world will try to edit it. Dorothy waved from her porch swing. "Is the crisis over?" she called. "The act break," I said. "We're on the other side of the page." "Good," she said. "I made too much pie. We ate pie on my stoop like conspirators who've decided to pick a better conspiracy next time." The street settled back into its old arguments about whose hydrangeas were best. When dusk arrived, it did it honestly. Inside, I did what I promised myself I would. I wrote the day. Arrests, orders, the judge's exact words. The counselor's name. The time Emma laughed because the clerk's stamp sounded like a superhero landing. Then I moved the lockbox to a different hiding place just to keep my future self nimble. Near 9, the phone blinked. A number I knew too well. The protective order blazed at me from my pocket like a lighthouse's friend. I let the call roll to voicemail. A minute later, a text. "You've destroyed my life." I typed and erased, then wrote the only thing I could trust. "I will not finance your suffering or your daughter's. If you want help, ask the court for what they ask of you. Evaluation, classes, compliance. If you meet the list, you can see her with supervision. If you don't, the distance is a kind of love." I didn't send it. I saved it in a draft named after a planet that will not be promoted or demoted by argument. Boundaries work best when the person who needs them hears them in a room where a judge can nod. Tomorrow my attorney will send the official version on letterhead. Tonight I practiced saying it out loud in the kitchen until the air believed me. The house grew quiet in the way houses do after long days. Wood remembering itself, the refrigerator sighing, the clock admitting it has always been the time it is. I opened Robert's drawer, the one with the recipe cards and his handwriting that looks like the left edge of a river, and found the card that says Pancakes Company. On the back, in pencil, he'd once written, "Boundaries are love dressed properly. I hear you." I said to no one, and to him. I slept in my own bed finally, without the sweater, without the order in my hand, and woke twice out of habit to walk the hall and listen to the ghost of small feet. Morning will come, and with it blue lunch boxes, and a lockbox, and a girl who insists Pluto still counts. There will be hearings and phone calls, and a ledger of second chances I will no longer pay into with money, but with rules and patience. The next week brought exactly that, arraignment dates, and supervised visit schedules that read like instruction manuals for fragile things. A first therapy appointment where Emma drew a whale sleeping with half its brain and told the counselor she is practicing. An email from the school praising continuity of care. A letter from my attorney that began as you requested and ended with a will I could live with. I signed it with a pen that never once needed to be shaken to work. On a clear Friday, Emma and I took the notebook to the planetarium. We sat under domed stars while a patient voice tracked light, older than all our mistakes. She reached for my hand when the lights went down, and when they came up, she kept holding it. Because sometimes courage is letting a good thing last one beat longer than you need it to. On the way home, she asked, "Grandma, is discipline a good word?" "It depends who's saying it," I said. "In our house, it means keeping promises to ourselves. It means paper in the right places. It means pancakes on Saturdays. And Pluto still counts," she said. "Always," I said. Back on our street, the hydrangeas were having the last word. I unlocked my door and hung my dress jacket in the hall, the recorder in its pocket like a retired tool. The clock in the hall kept the same patient time it always has. I put a fresh page in my notebook and wrote a new list that felt less like a brace and more like a map. Therapy Tuesdays at 4. Pancakes Saturdays Neptune optional. School pickup password unchanged. Call Sullivan with any change in weather. Letters to future Emma Quarterly. No cash, no secrets, no exceptions. If I fall short again, it won't be for lack of paper or pie or people who answer their phones. If I hold the line, the cold won't take what the years have not. I turned off the lamp. The house kept breathing. Somewhere on a page with my name on it, a judge's stamp dried the way paint dries. Ordinary, permanent, quiet as last light. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.